Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. Our theme for 2026 continues. The future of work, meaning is the new money. Because meaning is simply the greatest motivational force on earth. But 68% of the global workforce is disengaged, leaving $9.6 trillion in productivity on the table every year. Gen Z, the canary in the coal mine, is exposing structural failures everyone else learned to ignore, rationalize, or endure. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and designing solutions that solve real problems. This podcast delivers boots-on-the-ground intelligence, real conversations with CEOs, fractional executives, coaches, and small and medium-sized business leaders navigating the same crisis, mitigating the talent hemorrhage before competitive viability disappears. We go beyond symptoms like engagement scores and wellness programs to focus on the structural failures beneath them. Frontline intelligence, actionable frameworks, hard truths. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello again and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. This is your host, Dr. John Dentico. With me today is Leanna DeBellevue. Leanna DeBellevue built and scaled an award-winning global marketing agency for more than 15 years before successfully selling it in 2025. But that journey taught her something crucial. Growth creates blind spots. The busier and more successful a leader becomes, the harder it is to see what actually is slowing them down. That insight drives her work today. As founder of DeBellevue Consulting and an international speaker, Leanna works with business owners and leaders who have outgrown their current way of operating, helping them identify blind spots, create clarity, and build accountability so their businesses actually support the lives they want to live. Her approach isn't about adding more hustle or pressure. It's about perspective-driven accountability that helps leaders slow down just enough to lead with intention. Her tagline captures it: clarity, accountability, aligned growth. If you've ever felt trapped by your own success, or if you're navigating growth while trying to maintain meaning and purpose, this conversation is for you. I'm truly delighted to have Leanna with me this morning. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. So I'd like to begin by asking you this sort of simple question, and that is, tell me a bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and what were some of the influences in your early life?
So I grew up in California. I'm a Southern California beach-loving valley girl. And as I look back and as I get older, looking back, I realized that from a very young age, I was blessed enough to go to a private school where they taught us the value of not only hard work, but that your circle matters, who you surround yourself with. And that was something that was ingrained, I think, in all of us from a very early age. You're known by the company you keep. Show me who your friends are, I'll show you who you are type of deal. And I think that lesson, while I didn't appreciate it at the time, has definitely helped me get to where I am today. So I'm from California, but I've lived in several states. I've lived in Texas, I've lived in Colorado, I've lived in Arizona. Arizona is now home for me.
Oh, okay, cool. What part of Arizona?
We are in Queen Creek, which is a suburb of Phoenix.
I've traveled all around. I've lived in 9 or 10 states, and being a veteran and naval officer, I've been around the world. I lived in Northern Europe. You learn a lot from different cultures. Even in the United States, there's such a cultural divide, depending on where the Southwest, the Southeast, the Northeast, Northwest, all different kind of cultures that kind of really make up who we are across the board.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let me ask you this question. You specialize in working with leaders who are successful on paper, but something is off.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating position because most consultants chase the obviously struggling. What are the symptoms that tell a leader they're in this category? And why do successful people have such a hard time admitting something's wrong?
I know that I have a very different target because I've been that person. It's a leader who, on paper, again, everything looks great. So you have a team that's functioning well. You have a great company culture. You have your dream clients. You're not really worried about the day-to-day. You've got income coming in, but you've got all the boxes checked. And we're told that should equal a feeling of fulfillment or success, or now we can sit back and we can relax and we don't have anything else to worry about. But you get all those things and you realize something's still missing. And no one tells you that that's a possibility. You don't need to push harder, but something is off. And I think because all of those boxes seemingly looked checked, there is a feeling of guilt, of saying, gosh, I have all these things and it's not as fulfilling. There's a feeling of, I think for me personally, I'll just speak from my own personal experience. I am so blessed in all of these ways. I have what all of these other entrepreneurs are hoping to have. Who am I to say that this isn't fulfilling or that something's missing or I want to get to that next level, but I don't know how? Or maybe even I don't think I want to get to that next level. And so because I've been there and I know how isolating it is, it's given me a passion for having hard conversations with people in a safe space.
It's very interesting to me. I think the personal discoveries I've made have been when it's completely quiet and you let it come to you.
Yeah.
People, you just have to be receptive. And because what I've learned is the conscious and the subconscious are, like they're dueling every day for attention. I've made this comment several times before. I do my best thinking when I'm behind the wheel of a car and I'm driving because my conscious mind is working on driving and being safe.
Right.
And my subconscious mind is just noodling away back there. And I think a lot of times people think that you have to put more energy forward, go for it, think more, work harder, when there are times when you just have to say, I need to just stop and let it come to me.
Yeah.
And to your point, yes, we put so much on individual leaders at different levels that we crack them. We break them many times because the pressure is incredible. So the question becomes, how do we offload some of that if we can? I'd love to get any reflections you have on that thought. How do we make it easier for leaders? Go ahead.
I think it looks different for everyone. We all have different areas of brilliance. And I really think that internally, like you said, that struggle between conscious and subconscious, I help people get quiet and those kind of come naturally. A lot of times we know what the answer is, but it's scary to think, what is that next right step? What is that next thing that I need to get to? Or even scarier in my case was I need to slow down. Well, slowing down no longer just impacts me. I have an entire team of people that rely on me as their leader to provide and lead in a way that generates income. Their families depend on it. So when you have a team, it changes the way you think about things. I'm no longer impacting me. I'm now impacting several families and their families. So a lot of times we know the answer. It's just a scary answer to us, especially when that is to slow down or to admit I'm the bottleneck in my business, or I don't want to be the control enthusiast anymore. It's a new version of us. And because we don't necessarily know that new version, a lot of times we're hesitant to step into it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you've covered here, something I've talked about with different guests on the podcast, this notion of certainty and control. I have to have control, so I have certainty. Yet now, especially in this AI world we live in a time of doubt and ambiguity. There's a lot of doubt and ambiguity. And what I tell people, and of course I get this crazy look, is we have to embrace doubt and ambiguity. You have to hold it to you. And I said, but there's a beautiful thing that happens when you do that. It kicks the door open for collaboration.
Absolutely.
Because you don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
But you can find the answers if you open the door and let other people contribute. So it's and learning, Leanna, to do that is a whole different mindset from what people are taught in MBA programs in colleges and universities.
Right.
So it's a very different kind of a perspective on allowing others to really help you take the organization down the road. Very good. Let me ask you this question. You say growth, and maybe you might be a little bit redundant here, but that's okay. You say growth creates blind spots. Okay. The busier and more successful a leader becomes, the harder it is to see what's actually slowing them down.
Yeah.
Walk us through the mechanism. Is it ego? Is it bandwidth? Is it something else? And at what inflection point do leaders typically lose the ability to see it clearly?
When I tell you the answer, at least in the people that I worked with, and I hope that they're not offended by this answer, but it applied to me as well. It's ego 90% of the time. You wouldn't have a bandwidth problem if you didn't have an ego problem, because your ego wants to be involved in everything. Your ego wants to be the person that everyone comes to. This is what I hear a lot. I don't have a free second because everyone's asking me questions all day. Okay, but is there a level of trust there that they don't have to ask you? And if they make a mistake, are you graceful with that? So I think because it's ego, it's very hard to see it. We don't want to look internally, right? We want to say, it's a process problem, it's this employee's problem, it's this client's problem, they're not listening, they're not following, whatever that is. 9 times out of 10, it truly is an internal ego issue. Do you really need to be the only one that has the answers? And that's not something that I start off with. I try very hard to let people kind of self-discover that they might be the problem. I'm not forceful at all. I do this with a lot of grace because I'm going to tell you right now, I struggle with this even now. As much as I speak about it, I still struggle with it. And because it's our baby, it's something that we've grown, that we have nurtured. It's kind of an extension of ourselves, if you will. There's so much that we pour into this business. It's really hard to trust someone else with it. But when you do, that's when you start seeing the freedom of time, the freedom to dream bigger, the freedom to get to that next level organically and in a way that feels good. We have to get out of our own way.
Yeah. I liken it many times to this analogy. Too often, think of an orchestra, okay? Too often the leader is trying to play all the instruments.
Right.
You know, this all depends on me. This better sound right. I have to play all the instruments. And say, no. You're the conductor here. Let everybody play their own instrument. You have to bring them together and work through it. I think it goes back to that old adage that it goes like this. If you want anything done right, do it yourself. But it's impossible. It's impossible to do it yourself because, especially in this AI world, when now you have the democratization of knowledge and information and expertise at the fingertips of so many people, right. Gen Zers, folks like that, who can get on a computer and in 20 minutes dive into a problem using various AI tools and come up with pathways, ideas that maybe no one's ever thought about. So not allowing them to have what I call personal agency, control over their own abilities to contribute and do meaningful work. in the end, you've got this tug of war between the leader and people wanting to have a greater sense of meaning and purpose in their work. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I think I love that analogy. I've never heard anything like it with the orchestra. And a lot of times I ask our client, you're an industry leader in XYZ. You want your clients to trust you to be able to do the right thing. You want them to trust that you can deliver the product that you promised. The same is true with our team, whether that's an outsourced team, a hired team, someone that you bring on just for a project. They're wanting you to trust them. And a lot of times, especially when I started bringing on my team, I realized very quickly I was not the smartest person in the room. And they could have executed something the way that I wanted it done. And it probably would have only been to about 60, 70% of my goal. Because I am so busy in so many other areas, I don't have time to focus specifically on this one area. But if I bring someone in, and that's either their area of expertise or what they're most passionate about, they blow it out of the water every time. And it's in that understanding that if you want people to trust that you can do the job that they're bringing you on to do, that you need to be reciprocal in that with the people that you're asking to help you or to grow with.
Yeah. For me, the greatest motivational force on the planet is meaning. Everyone wants to matter.
Yes.
People are searching for a sense of control and autonomy over their own destinies. To me, that's the essence of personal agency.
Yeah.
Yet, the most recent data coming out of Gallup, for example, says that only 32% of the workforce is engaged.
Right. Yeah.
Which means 68% is not. And you say, well, why is that? And I would point immediately to say, well, what is an organization doing to help the people who work for them to understand that they have real meaning, real personal agency in that organization? What can they do without being empowered?
Right.
Without being empowered. Because for me, empowerment, I always talk about the hidden side of empowerment no one ever talks about. And that is simply this, that a person, you hire a person, they may have a bachelor's degree, okay? They may have 10 or 12 years of experience, okay? Their background, their experience, their life, the trials and tribulations they've lived through, they bring the power of that to the organization. So we always talk about the power going from the high to the low, but really they bring their own power and say, here, I'm delegating my power to this organization so you can use it and we can all benefit from it. But too oftentimes, I wonder if there's enough room, enough space, enough air, in the way many managers look at this, and to allow that to happen. What's your experience with that?
I think we have a new generation of workers that I think a lot of people aren't quite sure how to work with yet. When I was growing up, I was told you get a job, you work it for 20 years, you get a pension, you get retirement, you're done. You don't have to love your job, but you need to stick with it kind of deal. The generation today in the workforce, they want to know why. They want to understand, what am I doing to make an impact? And I think if you can't articulate that, or you can't show them how they are important to the success of the company, you're going to lose them. We hear terms like quiet vacationing, quiet quitting. What? Like, how is that even a thing? If you create a company culture that says, this is a collaborative environment, I, as the owner, ultimately make the decision. But that's because I handle all of the responsibility behind the scenes that you don't necessarily see. That said, I'm not the smartest person in the room. I think collectively we can make a difference. I want to hear all these inputs. Then you get people showing up and feeling empowered. Or when they make a mistake, we're all human. You treat that mistake with grace, we move on, and we learn from it. So if people have a freedom to know that their voice matters and that they're not held to a level of perfection that nobody can maintain, that's when they do have that personal buy-in. Once you get that, that's when beautiful things happen and businesses explode.
Yeah.
They grow.
It's so funny. People are going to think you're my shill, and I'll tell you why. You performed for me this morning a sanity check to make sure that I am somewhat sane. So,
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. For the past 3 months, I'm almost ready to publish it in another week or so. I have been working on a report, on what I call a field report. I'll tell you a little bit about it. I'll make sure I get you the information.
Yeah.
What I've done in this field report is I've taken the Gallup State of the Workforce 2025, Development Dimensions International Leadership Forecast 2025, and 17 of my previous podcast guests' episodes, and combined them into a document where all the data streams converge.
I love it.
The name of the report is this, because I wanted to create a field book because of using the podcast. It's called Throttle Up from the Field, Volume 1. The canaries in the coal mine. What Gen Z is exposing about the workforce crisis. And that's the key. Just like you said, when you talked about Gen Z, they want to know why. Yeah. But they are really the canaries in the coal mine. They won't put up what we put up with. They won't, just like you said, you get a job, you toe the line, you put in your time, and, 20 years from now, you may have enough agency to do things the way you want to do it. They're not putting up with that. But here's the key. They're the canaries in the coal mine. They're showing us what's wrong with the workplace that has existed for over 50 years.
Yes.
So that's the crux of the report. I think I've done a pretty decent job on it, and hopefully we'll publish it in the next week or so. And I will tell you, what you've just said is absolutely a lay down on top of one another of exactly what the report reveals.
I love that.
It's just, and people, it doesn't matter if you're a boomer like me or a millennial, a Gen Zer, we're all looking for the same ability, the same sense of meaning and purpose from the work that matters to us. And we all want to be involved in that. We just kept our mouths shut.
Right?
We soldiered on. And okay, I got the job. Oh, I got a job. I'm paying bills. I have a nice car. Those kinds of things were the considerations, as you well know. Yeah. So it's very, very interesting. I'll make sure I get you a copy of the report.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Anyway, okay. So let me ask you this question as we try to move on a little bit here. And that is, you've mentioned that for 2026, your personal focus is remembering that busy doesn't equal success, and not everything is an emergency.
Yeah.
That's advice you're giving yourself and not just clients. 100%. What's the leadership discipline required to actually live that way, especially when market conditions or competition create real urgency?
Yeah. I think there's two things. I think that there's boundaries, and I think it's a mindset issue. If you have a scarcity mindset, then there's not enough clients for everyone. You have to go out and you have to gather. And I think it really kind of goes back to how we were raised. Like, you go out, you push. It doesn't matter if you're working, 8 days a week, 60 hours a day. Like, the expectation was unrealistic. And having a mindset that is what's meant to be mine will be mine. And there's enough for everybody. There's a 6, 8, 10 billion. I don't even know how many people are on the earth anymore. But I can't service all of them, nor do I want to. So let me focus. Let me put some boundaries around. Who do I genuinely want to work with? And what does that need to look like? How can I stay in my area of brilliance for the longest period of time? Because I know that's going to give them the best results. And when you have that mindset shift, then it becomes a little bit easier. Okay, what boundaries do I need to put into play? And I really did learn this from a lot of my younger employees. When they clocked out at 5 o'clock, they clocked out at 5 o'clock, right? Now, there were times, obviously, if I had to ask them to push or ask them to make exceptions to their work schedule, they were all in, but it was because they knew that it was a rare exception. I genuinely needed them, and I would be right there with them. But I learned that work-life balance used to be a joke. I don't want it to be a joke. I want to enjoy time with my family, with my friends, learning more, doing what lights me up and what fills my cup. So having those boundaries is what allows me to do it. And the more you ease into that, now it's non-negotiable. I don't do things on the weekends. And here's why. Because I'm a better version of myself on Monday morning. And I fail all the time. It'll be 9 o'clock and I'm answering a message. And I'm like, got it. I kind of got to reel it back in. So not perfection by any means. But once you start living it, it becomes a lot easier to let that become your new normal.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think you're right. It's interesting because I've had two podcast guests on. One was Dr. Ashley Poklar. We got into this work-life balance thing. We started talking about it. And she made an interesting comment that was agreed to by another woman coach. And that was that work-life balance is almost unattainable, according to her.
Yeah.
What you have to look for is work-life integration. And the way she explained it is there are times when you can't have balance. You're all in. You're a fireball and you're going down the road and you're all in. But when that period is open, then you need to fall back and find that place where you can rest for a day or two, or go to dinner, or do something where you can take a step back and take a breath and breathe again. So it's a very interesting perspective. And I have to say, I agree with it. I think there are times when there is no other alternative but to go all in.
Yeah.
But you can't keep doing that all the time or you will burn out. But you have to know when that time is. And it may not be when you think it's going to be. So, in other words, you go, I can keep doing this. I'll keep going. And you go, no, I can't keep doing that. I'm done here. I need to take a day or a day and a half off, catch a breath, and then come back. And my brain will be much more attuned to what I really need to do right now. Life's hard. I mean, it's hard to keep that balance, keep your wits about you, still be productive. At the same time, you're taking care of your own humanity.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, one of the greatest moments in my life is when I accepted my own humanity. I didn't need to be perfect anymore. Mm-hmm. All I needed to do was keep trying.
Wow.
For me, it was a moment of, hey, I'm a guy. I'm doing my best. I'm not perfect. I'm showing up. You get 75% credit for just showing up. And the rest of it, we'll see what happens. But it took such a great burden off of me to say, I'm just a guy trying to do my part. That's all. And I don't have to be perfect all the time. But excellence is a good thing to pursue. So it's very, very interesting. I mean, at least that's my perspective on it. You got any comments? I'd love to hear them if you have any comments on that.
Yeah. One, I want to adopt that work-life integration because it's 100%. And when I say balance, I don't mean 50-50. So that the idea of integration, I think better fits what I'm trying to describe. So I love that. And I hope she doesn't mind me borrowing it. Right?
Oh, no. I told her I was going to steal it. So
awesome.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, you stole it from her. I'm stealing it from you. Someone will steal it from me. We'll get a movement started. But secondly is what a profound kind of awakening moment that must have been. And I think I needed to hear that today for myself because I have achieved a level of excellence in a different company. And I think I'm pushing myself to that. But I have a funny thing that I say that my husband drives him crazy because people will read my media bio and they're like, oh, you did this, you worked with Disney, you did all of these things. And I say, I'm just a girl doing my thing. I am no different than anyone else. If I can achieve this, you can as well. And he's like, you need to realize you're not just a girl doing your thing. But I think part of that is me giving myself permission to be that human. And I definitely want others to know, never want them to see me as above them in any way. I might be a couple steps ahead, but my goal is to get them a couple of steps ahead. I'm going to keep going ahead so they can keep going ahead. So it is a very different way of looking at things. And I think I needed that reminder today. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's interesting. I've got a doctorate degree. I've got a master's degree. I've written a book. I've got this wonderful podcast that I just stumbled into, just had no idea how to do it and just kind of revved up and did it. And yet, the way I look at it, and because I think a lot of it is that I grew up in a blue-collar family, that doesn't make me better than anybody else. It just makes the fact that I made different choices. I just made different choices. I'm not better than anybody.
Yeah.
And I think that helps me, certainly, when I'm talking to people, relate. And I think that's the key. People want people who can relate at that level and tell their jokes, listen to their jokes, or whatever, that kind of thing, and get it. I think that's important because sometimes you get up in that rarefied air at the top of the organization, and it's difficult for anybody else to breathe up there.
Yeah.
And even for the person themselves to breathe up there. So life is hard, and you never know what it's going to show you next.
No.
It's like being at a poker table and it flips over the card and you go, oh, I never wanted to see that card again. But you deal with it. So it's very interesting. We're getting close to the end here.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask you this question. Simply, what is your hope for the future? Where do you see yourself going or doing in the future? Where you want to settle in? Let's use that term. Let's settle into that. What does that look like for you?
What it looks like for me is being able to have open, honest, hard conversations with other business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs, and allow them to be the best version of themselves so that can trickle down the organization, and that we're not worried about things like quiet quitting. We're embracing this new idea and really understanding that it is collaborative. So I think as long as I can position myself as someone who understands because I'm living it currently, those conversations, albeit hard, are typically well received, and I want to just exponentially grow those conversations.
Wonderful. Yeah. I think teaching people that it's okay to fail. It's okay to be vulnerable, to say, I don't know, or I made a mistake. Let's figure out how we're going to go from here. What can we do to fix it and move on? I think that brings people to you. It says, hey, this person's a human being. Yeah, I've made mistakes. Let's see if we can fix it together. I know that there were times when I've failed and I'm in a group and stood up and took the first one to stand up and said, I messed this up. I was the one who screwed it up. Expecting people to come down on me, but instead they united with me.
Right.
And said, hey, look, let's fix it together. What do you need? You need anything? Come on.
Yeah.
Because I think they saw a part of themselves in there too.
I love that.
I could screw this up. And he admitted it, and hey, we'll fix this together, that kind of a thing. I think it kind of brings people together. So any last thoughts on that?
I think when you expect the worst and people show up with grace, it reminds us how good that felt. We want to show up for others that way. So I was shown grace. I was given grace. Let me give you grace. And let's figure it out together.
Yeah.
Better together.
That's great. Absolutely. Well, Leanna, this has been a wonderful chat. I appreciate your time here this morning on the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I wish you and your family every success in the future. Thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the great conversation.
You are most welcome. This is Dr. John Dentico. Remember, meaning is the new money, but it requires building the structures that deliver it. If today's conversation challenged your thinking or gave you a framework worth implementing, share it with a leader who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and visit throttleupleadership.com for more resources. Until next time, keep throttling up and keep the people at the center of everything you do.